Council of Black Mountain to order, and our own Jamie Matthews, Director of Public Works, is going to offer our invocation this evening. Jamie, thank you.
Lord, we thank you for another opportunity to stand before you this evening, Lord. And Lord, I just pray, Lord, that the decision that's made here tonight, and Lord, that they're just seek your guidance, Lord, in your will. Lord, we just pray for peace, Lord, in an unsettled country, Lord, at this time, Lord. We just pray for those that's fighting COVID, Lord, and for the families that's involved. Just pray that you touch and heal them, Lord, if it be your will. We just pray all these things in precious and holy name, Lord. We just pray for a hedge of protection against the ones going home tonight, to their families. Lord, we just seek your will. We just pray that you lead us, guide us, direct us, Lord, that you forgive us where we fail. We pray all these things in your precious and holy name. Amen.
Amen. Oops, I'm sorry. Pledge allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now you can be seated. I don't have any announcements in particular. I was going to make an announcement just regarding some additional COVID-19 safety measures we're putting into place. But as opposed to doing that, I would like to, if I could, just amend the agenda to add a COVID discussion under new business. We'll just make it F so that the board can just vent anything that they want to at that point in time regarding the measures that I asked Josh to implement today. And we can go over those just for the public one more time at that time. And then also one other amendment, if it's appropriate, Mr. Sneed, is that in our closed session to discuss personnel matters, we add and legal matters to that, if that's agreeable to everybody. And if that's agreeable to everybody, I entertain a motion to make those changes to the.
So moved.
Very good. Got a motion? Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much. I do have a proclamation to share this evening. It is for our recently retired police chief, Sean Freeman. He retired effective, was his resignation effective July the 31st, Josh? It was it? Yeah. And Sean did a great job for the town. We very much appreciated his service. And this is a proclamation for Sean Freeman. Whereas the town of Black Mountain is always appreciative of those who serve for the betterment of the town, and whereas Sean Freeman has dedicated 30 years of service in law enforcement, including 4 years of service to the town of Black Mountain as police chief and is now retiring, and whereas Sean Freeman rendered during his employment valuable services to the town of Black Mountain and the citizens thereof, whereas it is fitting that the town of Black Mountain shows its appreciation when one has rendered such valuable services, now therefore be it proclaimed by the town council of the town of Black Mountain that Sean Freeman is hereby acknowledged as having been a good, loyal, and faithful public servant of the town of Black Mountain, that this proclamation expresses the deep appreciation on behalf of the citizens of the town of Black Mountain for the valuable service which he has provided the town, that this proclamation is hereby presented to Sean Freeman, and a copy of the same shall be placed within the records of the town of Black Mountain, proclaimed this 9th day of August, 2021. Larry Harris, Mayor. And congratulations to Sean. He can't be with us this evening, but congratulations to him for a job well done. Do we have any citizen comments? Thank you. Dr. Jane Burns. You can just sit there at the table with the microphone. It'd be great. And if you would, name and address, full name and address
Yes.
for the record.
May I take this off, or do I need to leave it on?
Council?
She's at a good distance, and if we can't hear her, she may have to ask her to move the mask.
Yeah, fine to take it off.
Okay, okay.
Is that,
Thank
that's what
you.
you said, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm afraid I would just sound like mumbling.
that's been a
It's-
concession that's been made in a lot of meetings for the
It's
distance,
difficult.
so we can,
Yeah.
the board
All
knows
right.
what you
Yeah, that's
said.
actually why that table is placed where it is at this point, so,
Oh,
thank you.
okay. All right. I'm Dr. Jane Burns. I have lived for 21 years at 40 Hunting Lodge Drive in Black Mountain. I am retired. I spent 50 years in the nursing field. I had the privilege for 30 years to serve as a, I had the privilege to serve for 30 years with combat veterans, working with them and their mental health issues. And the last 10 years of my career, I had the pleasure of teaching students mental health nursing at Western Carolina University. And I come to you tonight with concerns. And as I thought today about, well, what are the concerns I want to bring to you? God put it on my heart that I have concerns for each one of you, because you're in a position where you're going to be making very important decisions. Very, very important decisions that are going to affect the health and the well-being of each person here in this town of Black Mountain. And that's not just, I don't want you to think of that as you sign a paper and this is the thing that happens, or this is the edict and I've decided, but it's making decisions that affect people like these people here, like folks over here, like myself, like each one of you. What the decisions you make have an impact on each of our lives. And that impact is going to affect our well-being. It's going to affect perhaps our health. And so I know that there's so much information out here when we start talking about issues around COVID, that there's so much information that comes from everywhere. And it gets confusing at times to be able to sort it all out. And I know mainstream media has a lot of information out there.
Excuse me, Dr. Burns, I want to remind you, the comments for 3-minute
Okay.
sections.
Okay. How much more minutes do I have?
Why don't you take 2 more minutes?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I guess I thought about, there's not too many people in this room that will remember Edward R. Murrow. But Edward R. Murrow used to say, and now for the rest of the story. And for the rest of the story, I'm bringing to you tonight these cards that, Savannah, could you pass those out for them? Thank you. This is a website where you can go to get the rest of the story that you're not going to hear on your mainline media. You're going to see people, physicians, virologists, researchers, very credible people who have served their communities for 20, 30 years, most of them, okay? And they have something to say, and I think it's something that you owe it to yourselves and you owe it to the community to go and hear what they have to say and have the rest of the story when you begin making your decisions about the lives of the people in this community. And so I leave that with you. I invite you, I implore you, because it's that important, I implore you to go there and to look at what's there. And in closing, I just want to say, may God bless you, may He protect you, and may He guide you in the decisions that you will be making. And I thank you.
Thank you. We have no reports tonight. We do have.
I have one more public
Oh,
comment, Mayor
one more
Harris.
public, yeah, gotcha, go ahead.
This is from Sean Sloan, and I'm not sure of his address. But I would like to share an idea relating to Veterans Park, the community garden, and the associated park real estate. Would the town council consider creating a new master plan for Veterans Park? ?
Veterans Park has so much more potential. It could become a major attraction for visitors and locals. Swannanoa River is a natural anchor for the park. Some of the infrastructure and improvements are already in place. Plan to integrate the massive Montreat Trail system across the river. The park could provide access to more healthy activities in nature, similar to those the town has been hoping for in our greenway system. Our beloved community garden is of great pride to our community. The master plan could establish a permanent home for the garden by supporting the construction of facilities it requires in order to reach its full potential. This plan could incorporate building a new community center along with ancillary uses by replacing the obsolete Gray Eagle building and also by possibly relocating the fire station. The new Blue Ridge Road interchange will generate commercial growth in the area and make the park more appealing. Why not get ahead of it and prepare for what is coming? We are blessed to have stunning natural attractions already established in Veterans Park. With a well-conceived master plan, I can envision the park being a destination for the many visitors to our area, improving our local economy, enhancing the quality of life for its citizens. Thank you for your consideration. Sean Sloan, 115 3rd Street, Black Mountain.
Thank you. Any others?
That's it.
I believe we have Jed Doherty who would like to make a quick remark about the library board. That's okay.
Public comment?
Yes.
Yes.
May I?
Yeah. Okay. Name, address, and 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you for a few minutes of your time. I'm Judd Doherty at 5 Oak Cove. I am a member and current chairman of the Black Mountain Library Board. And I come to report to you that the library is doing very well. We're in good shape. We have a 6-member board. Currently, or just recently, 2 of our members have retired, and we're in the process of filling the vacancies. As I mentioned, the library is in good order. We had the building painted in 2019. We had new landscape put in this past spring. Rex and Park have erected plant beds as an extension of the community garden in the back of the building, and that's being well received. We have an open area outside for group activities. Our main issues, maintenance issues with the library are the HVAC, the heating and the cooling systems. It's aging. There's old and older units that are networked together and they don't always shuck and jive well, but we work with it well. And there's day-to-day maintenance issues that we take care of. I come to ask for your input as to what should be the focus of the Black Mountain Library Board. What would you like to see in light of the Buncombe County Library System discussing renovation or relocation? What would be the town council's expectation of the library board? And I'll just present that to you. To respond now or in the future, if you have ideas to present to us, we'd be interested in hearing from you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And also, I would offer, if there's want to have a more complete report from the library board, you can get on the agenda and do that sometime if you'd like to, if you have anything more complete to report. So Josh, let's go ahead and get started with the consent agenda.
All right. The consent agenda will consist of beginning with 5A, which is your adoption of minutes. These are the July 12th, 2021 regular session meeting, the July 12th, 2021 closed session meeting, July 8th, 2021 agenda meeting, July 22nd, 2021 special call meeting, and the July 14th, 2021 closed session meeting. Item 5B is a resolution exempting the town of Black Mountain from General Statute 142-64.31. This is what is called the Mini Brooks Act, and we are asking for an exemption so we can award a project that we budgeted for this fiscal year, which is a water system study. We can use cost as a factor for awarding that contract. 5C is a resolution awarding former police chief Sean Freeman his duty badge and weapon. 5D is a budget amendment to transfer the fire department budget to the new fire department fund. 5E, a budget amendment for the Swananoa River restoration. This is to bring some Pigeon River grant money we received a couple of years ago that went into the general fund. This is to bring it into actually the capital project fund that we'll be talking about in just a second. 5F is a resolution for the creation of the Development Services Special Revenue Fund. This is where we will account for all of our inspections and fees that are borne in the Development Services Department or our Planning, Building, and Zoning Department. This is to bring all those into one fund. 5G is the Swananoa River Restoration Capital Project Fund Ordinance. So this brings all of the grants from Duke Energy, from Pigeon River Fund, and then some in-kind work we did for that project for the Swananoa River restoration, which we're almost complete with now. 5H, call for public hearing to close the portion of an unopened platted portion of Alexander Street. And just a reminder, that public hearing will be in October. 5I, a resolution for North Carolina League of Municipalities Insurance. We have been with our current insurance carrier for longer than I'd like to admit, and we have reached out to the North Carolina League of Municipalities, who we are a member of. They have a great liability and property insurance, and we're going to go with them, and that will save us about $28,000 and some change on our annual insurance premiums. 5J is a resolution for the creation of a technology special revenue fund. With our most recent budget adoption, we did include in our fee schedule a percentage on the permits that are borne in the building inspections and planning department. That percentage will go into a technology special revenue fund that we will use for technology upgrades in that department, really for software and things like that we need to get the job done. That'll be your consent agenda.
Great, thank you, Josh. Any questions for Josh? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Right, any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. We have no unfinished business, new business. Josh, do we have Mike with us?
We have Mike, he's going to be online with us, so we're going to cue him up now.
This is Mike Clark with the North Carolina Department of Transportation.
Give us just a second.
Just gotta share this.
You know the probability of this not working.
This happens so often.
So let us
Yeah.
Savannah, not me.
I think he's coming online now, but the screens aren't working, but we're going to get him at least talking. There we go.
All right. Mike?
Mike, can you hear us? One second. Mike, are you there? One second. Are you there now, Mike?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay.
Mike, we can't hear you very well. Can you just do a test on your voice there? Give us a 1, 2, 3 or something.
What?
Mike, can you try again, Mike?
It's not, you're not intelligible, Mike. We may just have to is it going to, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Well, that's a little better. Why don't you go ahead and try it and see if you can get your presentation out, okay?
Okay.
Keep going. We'll let you know if it's, if we have difficulty understanding.
Okay. Well, my name is Mike Clark. I'm the project manager for the I-4409 Blue Ridge Road interchange project. Also have Brendan Matthew on the call, our team lead. As some of you may know, this project was put on hold back in September of 2019.
So, Mike, if we can hear you pretty well when you started, just make sure and keep your face right towards your laptop, and maybe that'll help.
Yep, what about now?
That's okay. Just you faded out there for a while.
Okay. And so, okay, I apologize. Project where, so we were able to back on.
Hey, Mike, I don't think this is going to work very well. So how about if I do this? Because we've been here before. The board is from, we've been here with these designs. And you jump in and clarify as needed. But Jessica, can you?
Jessica.
Yeah, Jessica. Hey, Mike. Jessica is going to help make the presentation to the board, and you just hang on. And if we need any questions answered, we'll let you know. Okay.
That sounds good, Dave.
Thank you. And you can take off your mask while you're speaking if you'd like to.
I'm good. I'll
Okay.
talk slow.
Okay.
Okay, so I am definitely not as well versed in this as Mike is, but I can hit the high points of this for you.
All right.
The design that we all reviewed during public process is not a viable option. And this has to do with Duke Energy having a transmission line, and that DOT does not have prior rights to the property at this location that would make that design feasible. The second alternative, the second place alternative, which is actually number 3, if I remember correctly, is feasible.
Right.
It was not preferred largely because the flood gallery building would likely be or have to be taken.
Right.
Now, even in the alternative that was originally chosen, number 2, we did not know for sure that that building could or could not be saved, that we did not get far enough along in the design process to know that to be a fact one way or the other. But that was the hope, is that maybe that design would spare that building.
And I would add that was probably based on a very minimal amount of public input, but it's all that we had.
That's right.
That's why the
We
board made
had a
that
public
decision.
meeting, and then we had 3 designs to look at, and number 2 was slightly more preferred, but 3 was kind of a good runner-up, and it is a viable option.
Right.
DOT would prefer that to have some input from the council to be supportive of that choice, and in the form of a motion. But they also want to be very clear that if there's something that you want to talk about or have a meeting with them offline another time under better technological circumstances, that you're welcome to do that.
Right.
So you don't have to make that decision tonight unless you feel like you've had enough information to do that.
Right. Well, personally, I thank you. And personally, I like the, which are we asked to, the recommendation from NCDOT is option
3.
3.
Okay.
3 was my
So-
preferred.
Yeah, but I like 3 as well because even to start with, because I think it had more traffic calming features.
That's right.
And it was actually my preference to start with. So the motion, should the board would like to move forward on this tonight, and I'd recommend it, would be approval to a motion to approve NCDOT to proceed with option number 3 in of the 3 design sets.
That's right.
So, council,
Jessica, this might not be something you're prepared to answer tonight, but I was hoping Mike could talk a little bit about the accommodations for pedestrians
can
and
do that.
cyclists in this alternative.
So moving to option number 3, as I understand it, does not impact our preferences for bike and ped. The bike and ped recommendations have already been made, and I've already worked with Mike through that to be consistent with our desire to see bike and ped typologies from the Blue Ridge Road Small Area Plan through the project corridor. So that information would continue forward.
So what will the cycling and pedestrian experience be like?
If I remember correctly, and I do not have a diagram in front of me, we
This is
have multimodal on one side and we have sidewalk on the other.
So getting through the new interchange, it's not so easy right now on Highway 9. We're going to make sure that doesn't happen again.
That's right. The interchange section will accommodate bike and ped. And we wanted it to line up on the sides that we hope to see the modernization of Blue Ridge Road fall into as well.
Mhm. Great.
any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to throw our support behind option 3 so that DOT can move along and funding and making progress on this particular project that we've
Thank you.
all invested in.
Thank you so much. We have a motion on the table. Is there any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Thank you, Jessica, very much. We have, next item of business is Art in the Afternoon lease agreement.
Doesn't matter. Art in the Afternoons had a lease with the town the last 2 or 3 years, and they've asked to lease again, and this is the Carver Center space they use. They've asked to lease again under the same terms. In your package, you have a new lease agreement for an additional year, same terms as the past year.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the town attorney? And if not, would entertain a motion to approve the Art in the Afternoon lease agreement as presented.
So moved.
Great, any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Resolution for affordable housing efforts.
I'm gonna let Jessica talk about this one.
I'm gonna let the mayor read it and everything, I hope. But I wanted to bring to you a resolution that would acknowledge affordable housing as being a formalized effort among staff, which comes from our comp plan, Elevate Black Mountain. The idea of the resolution is to put some wind in our sails as staff to start building more partnerships in the community, looking at policy recommendations for the future, and really starting to understand who to be networked in the region. Affordable housing cannot happen solely in my office. It is going to take the work of a lot of different people and a lot of different mechanisms. And so we just really wanted to highlight that and this board's support for that work.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
Should the board pass the resolution, what would be kind of your next steps? What would be how you'd proceed from here?
We already have started developing a relationship with the Asheville Buncombe Community Land Trust. Land trusts are much more complicated animals than I originally knew, and it's been great to learn and to work with them. And we are going to be hosting an event for the community in some form or fashion. We might have to back up and punt right now. I'm not exactly sure, but to work with developers and real estate agents to understand that the land trust is a market rate available opportunity for them to develop affordable housing in Black Mountain.
Any other questions? Hearing none, a motion to approve resolution R-21-14, resolution for affordable housing efforts.
So moved.
Great, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Black Mountain Pickleball Group, MOU.
I'm gonna let our Parks and Rec Director, Mr. Josh Henderson, lead us through D and E both.
All right, thanks, Josh.
I don't have a copy in front of me, but I am familiar. We have had I guess I took over this role in 2018, and we had a kind of unformalized group of pickleball players that were playing at the then Carver Center where our offices were based out of. That group has grown over the years. In the winter, fall, and spring months, they have the opportunity to play at Cragmont Assembly, which they've been gracious enough to let them do so. But in the summer months, obviously Cragmont Assembly operates as a camp and conference center, so they had to relocate. In doing so, they've been playing on the Cragmont Park tennis courts, which we put down some pickleball lines to accommodate their play and that sort of thing. This agreement in front of you tonight is just to formalize their relationship with our department and kind of outline some of the things that we felt like would be necessary in terms of allowing them to reserve some time to play on public courts.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Josh on the MOU? And hearing none, motion to approve the MOU.
So moved.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Great, thank you, Josh, and move right along to youth football and cheerleading.
So this MOU is a little similar in nature. We've had a youth football and cheerleading group that has been operating within the town for a number of years, some that I was unfamiliar with until recently. This MOU is very similar to one that you guys adopted a few months back with the baseball group. I think the only change that they were asking for on there, which was highlighted in the margins, was to keep their own site storage, which we did not offer to the baseball group just for lack of not having that availability down there. But they do have a mobile unit there, and they're just asking to keep that. But again, it's real similar in nature to baseball, just allowing them some practice time that they can reserve through our department and use of those fields for their needs.
Great, thank you, Josh. Any questions for Josh on the Owen Warhorse Youth Football and Cheerleading, better known as the OWYFC MOU?
That mobile unit has been there already, is that right?
Yeah, it's been there for some years.
Okay, so we're not adding any new.
No, we're not adding anything at all.
Any other questions? Hearing none, have a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding and amendments as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Archie. Any questions or comments? And hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. And so this is our added agenda item, just thank you, Josh, just to announce to the public and get it in the minutes of this public meeting, the safety recommendation and guidelines that I asked Josh to implement this morning, and the board can then ratify or take the direction you want to take. These are my directives to Josh. Restrict town offices for open entry by the public as we did earlier in the pandemic. In other words, the doors to our public buildings will be locked. We will serve the public needs, but we'll work by appointments and calling a posted number for entry as we have done in the past. This will be effective as of Wednesday morning, August the 11th. We will require town employees to submit proof of vaccination. The town manager has already initiated this process. The proof of vaccination will be maintained in a confidential fashion and maintained in the employee personnel file. And the objective there is to allow the town manager and personnel director to just better manage employee safety and to be aware. As of the morning of 8/11/21, we will require mask or face coverings for employees who have not been vaccinated. Employees who have not been vaccinated will be required to be tested on a weekly basis, somewhat similar to the county's orders, except they have a health department, they have, the courthouse, they have the Register of Deeds office, they have places where the public is in and out of, and a lot of public is in and out of a lot. So I think their situation's a little different. Ours being that we've had experience with over the winter and the sheltering before the governor lifted his orders. that we operated just fine with the doors locked. But we entry for appointments and to get business done and so forth. All employees will use a face mask. Let's see, maybe that's the next one. We will not require face mask for face coverings for employees who have been vaccinated since the offices will be closed to public entry. All employees will use a mask or a face covering when meeting with the public. In public meetings, the council will require masks for all council members, members of the public, and staff attending. And that was actually passed by council last Thursday. And we will review this policy at the September agenda meeting. It was effective for tonight's meeting since council ordered it last Thursday. The golf course, community garden, pools, and parks will remain open to the public. We ask members of the public to use a mask or face covering if not vaccinated. The volunteer luncheon scheduled for this coming Friday, which is the 13th, was scheduled at the Public Safety Building, will be rescheduled with an October date in mind. And I believe we settled on October the 29th, which is the last Friday in October at noon. So those are the guidelines I've offered this morning, and of course, some of that the town council's already been involved with. If council, if that sounds good to you, I would appreciate a motion just to affirm that. I think it's good for us to be on the same page. And if you offer changes, then that's fine.
I'll make that motion.
Great, thank you. Motion made. Is there any other discussion, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of affirming those safety guidelines signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Great, thank you, council.
Mayor, if I could, just for just a second,
Yes.
interrupt. So I know the Attorney Sneed mentioned earlier about, the emergency declaration. We are still in an emergency declaration here in Black Mountain. We have not rescinded that emergency declaration.
Oh, I thought
As
it
of-
was
As of now, it has not been rescinded. So at this point, I think I'm gonna lean on Ron. I guess, it's the mayor's call, and I think typically you would like council's blessing on that.
Right.
And it's completely up to council and the mayor if y'all want to stay in this emergency order. We are currently in it now in the town. We have not rescinded it.
What impact does it have one way or the other? Do we have to, in order for my guidelines to be?
It's a two-step process. Is the declaration of emergency. From that follows the emergency actions that you take.
Okay, so,
Josh is right. We've been at it so long, we forgot that a year and a half ago that declaration was made. It's just never been withdrawn.
right. And even though the governor has withdrawn the statewide,
Town is
we're
not.
okay continuing with ours.
There's no need to declare a new emergency.
Okay.
Correct.
And but we need, just to clarify, we need to continue with the emergency declaration in place just so that we can issue these public safety measures and so forth
That's
quickly.
That's correct.
Great.
Those powers don't exist without the declaration.
And so, and we need not do anything to remain under the order, under emergency order.
We're in it until it's rescinded.
Right, okay, very good. That's clarification, I think, for any members of the press who might be here this evening. So we are under the order. Okay,
May I ask a question to Josh, please? Josh, would you walk us through what happens if a staff member tests positive currently?
Sure. So so if a staff member currently tests positive, then of course they are no longer working. They are sent home, and they have to be, symptom-free or fever-free for a certain amount of time. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that is 10 days after they test positive. If I'm not mistaken, if they're asymptomatic, I think it's 14 days. And then, you don't require a test to come back because you still test positive, I think, for weeks and after even having it. But once you subsided with your symptoms and you're fever-free, then you can come back to work. That's how we are doing it now.
And what are we doing with anyone that they've been working with or in close contact with?
So we will send them to get tested. If they've been working in close contact, that person will go home. They will not be here. And of course, there's a 5-day window they have to wait from contact to get tested. Because sometimes if you don't do the 5-day window, they can test negative up to that 5th day. So if someone has been in contact with that person that is tested positive, then we would exercise caution and make sure that person has a negative test before they come back to work.
I assume for full-time employees, this is paid time off.
They would be using their own paid time off. That's correct.
thank you. Any other questions for Josh? Thank you, Josh. So we have 3 public hearings. The first being a public hearing for text amendments to add a minor subdivision cooling off period. And I'd entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Jessica?
Yes, this is a text amendment for the cooling off period. As the name suggests, this is a period of time between minor subdivision applications. And the goal is to prevent bringing rapid succession minor subdivisions, in essence, to develop a major subdivision without having to follow the rules that are required for a major subdivision. So the cooling off period is 3 years for properties adjacent to any property that has had a minor. And if you own property and you want to continue with that, you would just have to follow the major subdivision guidelines.
Any member of the public wish to speak?
No.
Right. I then entertain a motion that we close the public hearing.
So moved.
Great, thank you. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, any member of council have a question for Jessica on the ordinance? And if not, then I would entertain a motion that,
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, may I ask a
Sure.
question? So is this consistent with our other jurisdictions doing things like this?
Absolutely. Cooling off periods are standard practice.
anybody else? So I would then, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion that council approve ordinance 0-21-11.
So moved.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Public hearing for ordinance 0-21-07 for text amendments to add conditional zoning. And I'd entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, Jessica.
Yes, conditional zoning, which we have talked about several times before in this room, is finally here. 160D really sets the stage for conditional zoning to be the go-to tool for land use in North Carolina. It's been around for over 20 years and is very commonly practiced. Our ordinance is very conservative. It does not provide flexibility in a myriad of uses, but rather creates mirror conditional districts, which marries developments to site plans which are approved and become enforceable. That is the major difference. It's not likely that you would see conditional zoning for a little piece of property that you might want to subdivide and leave to your grandkids. You would be more likely to see it in a subdivision application in which many lots are created and a plan is approved as opposed to just the zoning district itself. And this provides opportunities for conditions to be imposed to mitigate things that may make neighbors more comfortable with that development. And I think in the past we've seen some projects that we would have had maybe more comfort with if the site plan we knew would become a legal instrument that the developer could be held to. And this ordinance allows that to take place.
Great, thank you. Any member of the public wish to speak?
No.
And I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Any questions for Jessica?
So this would be just the projects going forward, anything that's already in the works is grandfathered in. So
That's
this-
correct. Anything
Yeah.
that has been submitted at this point, they can choose if they want to. Conditional zoning is always at the request of an applicant.
Say that again.
Conditional zoning is at the request of an applicant. So they could choose to change if they wanted to, but right now they would not be, we can't require anybody to.
So the process would be, you have the current zoning
Mhm.
that's in place.
Mhm.
And so somebody buys a piece of property and they want to do something with it, and as you said, presumably a larger piece of property, but it doesn't have to be.
That's right.
But you got the zoning that's in place, and if the owner, builder, developer, whoever it may be, wants to do something different, it's up to them to apply for conditional use. They have to submit their plan, and it would be vetted, and of course, it still has to comply with
It does.
some guidelines. on
Yes,
this.
it's
Yeah.
conditional, it'd be a conditional zoning application, and it works very similarly to the rezoning applications that you're very familiar with. But as opposed to approving anything and everything that is allowable within that district, which is what you are required to do now with regular zoning,
Right.
with a conventional district, when it's conditional, they are submitting a site plan to that, and conditions that are described and that are unique to that location.
Right.
And it is then enforceable. They cannot say, well, we decided not to do houses, but instead a bed and breakfast.
Right.
They are married to that document.
Right. And let me ask one more question. Is this, do we have a choice? Because is it 160D? Is this a 160D issue, Ron?
It's not a mandated change that the board has to make, but what you've had in the past were conditional use zoning districts. And so if I wanted to have a use within that district, you had a bunch of standards that weren't tailored to anything, but a bunch of standards you had to meet. That doesn't necessarily answer all your questions. If you want a nice example, Brooks Cove, which you approved the rezoning, the neighbors didn't like, but this board had no choice but to rezone one of our existing categories. We could have rezoned that with conditional zoning as UR8, but subject to these limitations. It gives you more flexibility. There are other situations where, and this is probably a poor example, but say you had a TR4 district, and there's a piece of property within this TR4 that's ideal for more dense development. I could come to the board and say, I want conditional zoning to zone my lot as UR8 with whatever conditions the board puts on me, so I can do it at this higher density development. And since you can put conditions on it, you can get the developer can get the greater density, the town has the control that it wouldn't otherwise have. All it can do is just rezone it UR8 and turn him loose. With conditional zoning, you can make that change, but limit what happens within that district. And that's been the most popular use of it. Asheville, for instance, if you want to see a couple of conditional zoning things, you go up the hill into Beverly Hills. On your right, there's a couple of businesses and old houses on the right. Those are conditionally zoned to allow business in a residential area, but they had to meet very strict standards to do it.
Thank you.
And those are conditional zoning.
Thank you. Great. Any, Bill?
And so this, just to educate me, this process, the conditional zoning comes to the council for a vote, is that correct?
Through the
Yeah.
planning board to the council?
Yes, first planning board, then you will.
But ultimately it comes
That's
to the
right.
council. Okay, thank you.
And with this, this would be the only way to request rezoning.
No,
Oh,
you have to allow the opportunity for conventional or
Okay.
conditional. The difference is if, you may reject a conventional request and say, we might entertain this under a different circumstance. That's sort of you have a carrot or stick you can use in conditional zoning. I do want to clarify though, the way that this is like the most conservative application, and that we can explore greater flexibility in the future if you also choose. But I do just want to note that all standards and requirements to the corresponding general base district shall be met, except to the extent that the conditions imposed by the conditional zoning may or may be less restrictive than the development standards. Only those uses in the underlying zoning district, whether by right or specially, shall be permitted in the conditional zoning district. So I just want to clarify, like in some versions of this, you can have a greater number of uses in conditional districts. We are really holding our cards close to the tier and keeping those uses very narrow to the general district below. If that makes sense. It's not a wild card.
Why are you recommending that?
I think it's a good starting point and to get comfortable with this use. And I'd rather start tight and then loosen up as we see fit.
Right.
It's a lot easier to go forward that way than to go backwards. Sure.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 0-21-07 as presented.
So moved.
Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. And our last public hearing is to close a portion of unopened platted right-of-way parallel and between West College Street and Goldmont Street on the south end. And I'd entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Great, thank you. All those in favor of opening the public hearing?
Aye.
Opposed? No, and so Jessica.
This will be your last public hearing regarding this stretch of right-of-way. This will close the balance of this right-of-way. Actually, the very top of it, you closed last month, but it is redundant in this application from Planning Board. It will close this right-of-way that does run between Goldmont and West College from the wider right-of-way that you closed last month down to 70. And this was the request put together by Planning Board to close that entire corridor as opposed to having bits and pieces throughout the neighborhood.
Great. Any member of the public wish to speak? Please come up, just name, address, and welcome to do that.
My name is Charles Ledford, and address is 42 Goldmont Street. And the question is, are they talking about closing the right-of-way that goes between West College and Goldmont, or are they talking about the street alley that goes down to 70? Because the petition that we put in was to close the right-of-way that goes from Ash Street over to the Central Avenue.
Okay.
And that's the right I was talking about. And
Right.
it keeps throwing me off in between Goldmont and that, what it says.
Great, thank you. Is that just your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you for your comments, and I'll ask Jessica to come back and address your question. Okay, so Josh, can you
I think I can remember. So
review that question for Jessica? And maybe for the public as well.
I think Mr. Ledford was asking about the original petition that was to close a right-of-way that was in between Goldmont and West College, only from Central to Ash.
So that happened last month.
That happened last.
Great, thank you.
It keeps throwing me off at the matter at the street area. I received the form from what Mr. Reed started a long time ago. It came down to my property. That's already been closed off. Ricky Reed's filed a petition to have that, that's the matter of that. But this here is where it joins my property and Mr. Dalton's property.
This would be the area, sir.
So does that clarify what we're doing here tonight? We closed the portion that that is being questioned was closed by the speaker, was closed last month.
That's correct. Mr. Ledford's petition, that was dealt with last month, which has already been closed. This is the petition the planning board put together.
Right.
For the
correct.
balance.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any other member of the public wish to speak? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Right, thank you. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so questions for Jessica?
Just got just one question about, what's the distance of what we're closing now?
The length is it's about 850 feet and it's 15 feet wide.
And then we'll close the whole,
It would close the balance of that block. It would close
Okay.
that block. Mhm.
Okay, great. Any, that answer your
that's,
question? Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution R-21-17 for the right-of-way closure.
so moved.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Great, thank you, Jessica. Mr. Sneed, do you have anything additionally to share with us?
No, I have nothing to add. Earlier in the summer or in spring, I talked about a couple of bills that were in the legislature. One that would redefine single-family dwellings so they could be quadruplexes on the bad side. And on the good side, some legislation that would have loosened up some of the things we could do to encourage affordable housing. Both of those are still stuck in committee. Typically, at this time of year, you would say they were dead, but this year they're predicting the legislature will operate until November. We may hear from those yet.
Great, thanks. Josh, you have anything?
Sure, real quick, couple things. Just a reminder that our final show of the season for Park Rhythms is this Thursday night at Veterans Park. Sourwood is also this weekend, 8/14, Saturday and Sunday. Should be good. Hopefully the weather holds out. And then town hall offices will be closed on Labor Day, September the 6th on a Monday.
Great, thank you. The only thing I would add, just as far as announcements, just has to do with our public safety and uptick that we've had in infections due to the Delta variant of the COVID-19 virus. And I think most people understand that what we're attempting to do is to keep the public safe. Almost everybody has a different attitude about something about almost any aspect of the virus and also about any aspect of public safety implemented. And what we have attempted to do in the past is, of course, we follow the governor's orders when there is one, because would be the law in the state of North Carolina, I believe. The town attorney could correct me if I'm wrong. But other than that, we pay close attention to what our county commissioners are doing, and sometimes because their situation is different, they might at times have instituted a little more rigid standards than the governor has, and that's understandable. And so we try to be sensitive to that. At least it's my opinion, and I think council agrees up to a certain point, if not completely, that we consider what we have in Black Mountain and adjust accordingly with some of those. But of course, the governor's word is what matters, and that we do try to be good neighbors with the rest of our friends in the county as best we can. And so hopefully, if we move forward through this, we'll get to a better place and take the mask off again. So thank you. Appreciate all the folks being here this evening, your participation. Council, anything to add? Hearing none, if no one has anything, I would entertain a motion that we go into closed session to discuss personnel and legal matters as presented by the North Carolina, allowed by the North Carolina general statutes.
So moved.
Great, thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.